Recording has begun.
Great. Awesome. All right. So let us start. It's been 2 minutes, 3 minutes after the session start time, so I guess it's a good time for us to continue with our session. So, welcome everyone. My name is Daniel, and today I will be the host of the session. As a reminder, the session will be recorded, so please keep that in mind. And today, first, we will discuss our working group's activities. And after that, we will give a summary of the incident and our efforts to bring the network back up. I hope by that time our engineers join us so we can have that discussion. And also, we have some exciting news, so stay tuned. And if you have any questions by the end of the session, please feel free to raise your hand and we will invite you to the stage. All right, Christian, shall we start with the engineering and governance working group?
Hey, yep. So Christian here, covering for the engineering and governance working group. So first, starting with the engineering working group, on the first topic of the bridge, Coin One has made, seems like a lot of progress. He's currently working on integration tests. Presently, he has an agent built out. It doesn't have the multi-sig functionality, but it does like detect coins in the blockchain and then sort of move it over to another. And currently, testing is sort of taking place between ETH and our protocol. He's currently working to create more integration tests to validate end-to-end testing. And next, we'll potentially look at multi-sig functionality. On the next topic of the network outage, in terms of like the actual details on the network outage, like Odie and others can speak more to it, but essentially at a high level, when the network failed over, like in order to restart it, it was sort of requiring, sort of all validators who had ever been involved in the network, which was sort of a threshold that couldn't meet because not all those folks are sort of still actively involved in the project. Odie suggested, though, that sort of from this network outage, there was a chance to sort of turn lemons into lemonade and implement sort of a lot of long-standing things that we as a project had wanted to implement. This included like sort of implementing the make whole project, enabling slow wallets, implementing Ancestry analytics, and also making proof of burn be more dynamic. So, with those kind of ideas, we voted on the engineering group to go ahead and implement these changes as a part of sort of the network kind of, I guess, restart or relaunch, with the note that the proof of burn portion of this, we would have a 14-day delay on the implementation so that anyone with sort of really strong feelings against this could voice them, and we could consider whether or not to roll this out if there was really like strong pushback. And sort of those are sort of the high level updates from that working group meeting. On the governance working group, really we continue to look at sort of what had been discussed last week, looking at our kind of charter, constitution, discussing the steering council, and kind of looking at kind of interim kind of governance voting processes. So this is like very much still kind of an active discussion, and hoping to kind of agree to as a group kind of final versions of this that we can socialize with the community. So that's it for me.
All right. Thank you so much, Christian. Some exciting news we have there, but I'm sure we will hear more from Odie as well. Rico, let us hear about hustle, karma, and branding and comms groups.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I can do that. Hey, before we move on to that, Christian, regarding the engineering working group, I know Coin One had raised, or Coin 1111, had raised this last meeting, and I believe the meeting before that, the possibility of instead of bridging directly to Ethereum, looking instead at other systems like perhaps Binance or I forget what the other was that he suggested. The reasoning being is that the transaction costs associated with the Ethereum chain were going to be prohibitive for doing things, particularly like multi-sig. Did we land that? I missed part of the discussion, and I was just curious personally whether we had landed that. Christian, if you're talking, you're on mute. There you go, bud.
Hey, sorry, do you mind starting that question again? Sorry, you cut out a little bit for me.
Oh, sorry. Coin 1111 had raised the possibility concerning the bridge of instead of bridging directly to Ethereum, to bridge instead to another system, say something like Binance, where the transaction costs were more favorable and weren't going to be blockers for things like multi-sig. Did we land that?
I think, and OD, if correct me if I'm wrong, I remember one call we had kind of a discussion on this, but I don't think we ever really firmly committed to it one way or another. It seemed like OD, you had made some suggestions potentially around batching, et cetera, where the Ethereum concern might be less of a concern, but I don't know that we necessarily landed that,
Okay.
unless I missed something.
No, fair enough. I missed part of that discussion. I was just curious. Okay, back to what I was asked to do instead of asking questions. The Hustle Karma Working Group, we met this week. We had a fairly short meeting. We had a couple of people out, and of course, the incident response has been sucking up a lot of energy around the community. We spent a fair amount of time in that meeting talking about setting up rewards for the people that have been engaged in the rescue mission and making sure they get some compensation for their time, which is certainly the right thing to do. We also spent a bit of time talking about getting initial payments set up for working group key roles as the first set of terms come to expiration. We're mapping out right now for all of the working groups what that payment cycle should look like, because of course each of them had different start dates for their elections. And we'll be communicating that to the group across this week so that everybody can stay in sync and get things paid on time. Let's see, we also talked about the possibility of putting together a bounty for supporting development of the UI, or whether that's inside of Carpe or a web UI for the bridge. Coin 1111 was going to deliver it with the CLI interface, and so we needed something that was going to make it more usable, obviously, for a broader number of people. So those were the big issues at the Hustle Karma Working Group this week. For branding and comms, Elliot presented to us the last set of revisions on the 2 logo ideas, and we landed those, which is really good news. And that means next week at the community meeting, Lex and Elliot, I'm not exactly sure which one yet, will be presenting both of those ideas to the community, explaining what the rationale is for those ideas, and then we're going to turn it over to the community for a poll, for a vote to see which of those 2 logo ideas the community likes, and we'll adopt that going forward as our logo. Daniel, I know there was some discussion about perhaps hosting the community call next week on a different, not a different platform, but a different format here in Discord. The stage format that we're using right now doesn't permit screen shares, as I'm sure you know. Did we land that? Are we going to be on a stage next week, or are we going to be on a voice call next week?
True. So yeah, a stage won't support screen sharing. One option would be inside Discord to use the voice channels, normal voice channels.
Right.
And but then we have to keep the session a bit organized, we have to suppress the voice functionality for normal users. And in that way, we could only allow our panelists, so to say, to be able to talk and then present their work and share their screen at the same time. Other option would be to, for example, host the session inside a Zoom meeting, for example. But we didn't come to a decision for that yet.
Okay.
But that's a good question, because another news that we have is that we've set up the polling bot in our Discord server, and we have 2 new channels for it. And with that, we could set up a poll for our community and let us decide everyone together, we can decide where is the best place to host such sessions together.
Okay, so then for next week, we're just going to kind of wait for the announcement about where the location of the meeting is going to be, and I assume we'll do that through our normal Discord channels. As Daniel points out, Discord isn't always ideal for providing flexibility for meetings and those sort of things. So we'll figure it out. We'll let you know. And yes, the polling system is up inside of the Discord server right now. And also, we've got a verification bot in place as well, which hopefully will reduce civil behavior inside of Discord. It hasn't really been a problem to date, but we wanted to anticipate that before we launched a polling functionality so that it wasn't, ridiculously easy to game the polls. And thank you to Daniel for doing all that work. And so those were the biggies for branding and comms was finalizing those two logos and getting those to the point where we can present them to the community and we can bring that to a conclusion. There's also been some secondary discussion about color schemes and sort of looking at some ideas for reskinning the website, but it's fairly early in those discussions yet. Expect more of that to continue today. Remember, the branding and comms meeting happens right after this meeting every week, so if you have an interest in those things, please join us. And Daniel, I think that's everything for me for Hustle Karma and for branding and comms, so back to you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rico and Christian, for all the reports and working groups. So, welcome, Odi. Odi, as many of you know, is part of our engineering contributors, and he and other engineers were working super hard the past few days on bringing back the network up, and I'm really excited to hear what Odi what news he has to give us, and the stage is yours, Odi. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, sure. And I might just try and give a summary and then open up more for questions. There's a risk of just going into too much detail. I think the highest level is that, yes, the network stopped. We figured out a way to restore networks. We have never really worked on the tooling for restoring networks that halt, which is something that we could have given more attention to early on, but we just got lucky with never having a halt. But the time came, and so we had to invest some time getting the tools ready to restore a halt. So we've done that. There's a lot of learning, and we have good tools now, so next time there would be a halt, we could quickly get back up. But I think part of the reason why it's taking us a bit longer to get the network back up, longer than we're comfortable with, is that I think many of us saw an opportunity to bring back a stronger network. So really accelerate a lot of the features that might have taken us a month from here or longer, 2 months or whatever, and just roll them into this patch, or roll it into this upgrade. Why is that good? Well, it's because we have a network at rest. We have a database at rest. We could do different types of administrative transactions onto it, update the standard library. So do a lot of things that are very tricky to do when the network is in flight. So really it presented us a great opportunity, having stopped. Doesn't sound fun. It's not fun, but we can turn lemons into lemonade here. And I think it's really great lemonade. I mean, we've got some super cool stuff that we can bring in. I mean, and a lot of sort of like very popular features we've been trying to get in. So make whole, we'll finally, be able to pay back Carpe people. That's going to go in right now. Transactions are going to be enabled. So transactions from ordinary wallets, standard wallets, have been enabled, but we're going to roll out Carpe with that capability as well. Slow wallets as well are going to start having their drip enabled. So you're going to be able to, everybody who has a slow wallet is going to be able to move funds around. We've been wanting to change, what's the best word for it? We've been wanting to encode some of our auto pay practices, community practices, in the burn, in the epoch burn that we have. So you can read a bit more about that, but we've had in OL we have every epoch the validators burn one coin, and we've been meaning for over a long time to turn that into a dynamic burn. So I think it's consistent with how we've been doing auto pays. So I think that's great. It's a hard one to. It's good that we're have database for the rest to be able to do that one. Another important one is ancestry data. So we already have these permission trees that are generated on the OL Explorer and by the analytics group, but we've been missing having it on chain because we could sort of augment our games and some of the guarantees we could have in our games if we knew the origin, the provenance of new accounts. It was something that we wanted to do at Genesis originally, and then we punted on, and then I think a lot of us regretted not having that information on chain. And so that opens up a number of things, like we could have validators vouch for other validators, but we can get a little bit more guarantees of saying, well, was this validator that's vouching for you, was it created by your own account or your parent account? So that's something that we want to introduce and experiment with. So previously, when you were a validator, you only need one other validator to vouch for you in the network. And so now we can up that and say, well, you'll need 3 validators. It's not, we're not going to create permissions network, but we're going to say, well, you need at least 3 other validators to say that your settings and config are correct. And with the ancestry information, we can desybil that. So that's cool. And we couldn't have brought in that ancestry information without a fork, without an administrative stop. So I'm trying to think of all the things we're trying to introduce, but I think that those covers, and the other ones are just sort of stability fixes on how the epoch changes, so we don't get ourselves in another halt. So I think that's all very positive. I think we're going to get to the shiny new blockchain at the end of this, and hopefully today we'll get the network up. Give us 24 hours to actually see if it performs the way we want, and then I think we can broadcast more, widely that we're back. So I'm going to stop here. I know there'll be a lot of questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Odi. Those are indeed some really exciting news. So we will have wallet-to-wallet transfer. We will have make whole upgrade happen. We will open the slow wallets account so they will be able to spend their tokens now. And we also have some updates on our validator accounts to make it more competitive. So in other words, make the network more robust by that way, by that type of implementation. I think I'm really happy, to be honest, that we took the opportunity of the network hall to implement such important upgrades to the network. And I think considering all these important upgrades, it kind of makes sense that the network took a bit longer to bring it back up. But I'm also really happy that we are managing it today, or perhaps by tomorrow. And then we can, as you said, broadcast it to everyone that they could start their activities on our network. So I have to thank you and all of our other engineers for that, because I know that how much time you guys spend into this. So thank you so much, Odi, Drew, Eshix, Adele, Shashank, Rico, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot of other engineers here. But yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks so much. In case our other panelists have notes that they want to cover, please feel free to hop in. And also, if our members have some questions, also feel free to raise your hand and we will invite you to the stage.
Sorry, I missed it. Apologies if you touched on it, but what does this mean for Carpe miners? in terms of when will they be able to start mining again?
Yeah, so I think we need 24 hours after the network starts to just make sure it goes over to the next epoch. You know, thing is, we can't stop people from using it, from using the network. So we have some volunteers that run full nodes for Carpe. We'll ask them to have those off while we're testing the network. I mean, we can have a bit more of a conversation here about it, but yeah, I feel like we couldn't do it right away. Have all the users. But again, there's this issue of an asymmetry of information. We need to tell Carpe users that we're back before other users are able to use it, and I don't know how to solve that, frankly. So I didn't really answer your question, but I think the full node volunteers should hold off until we go into a new epoch, at least. Because there's no guarantee. Here, I'll say this a little bit differently. When we start this network, it's going to be an experiment. It's going to be experimental, and so we can. I think I'll be comfortable calling it the network after we move to one more epoch. So there could be games people play in between that time, but yeah, I'm not sure what to do about that, frankly.
Hi,
Miska
Miska.
is raising their hand.
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question. I saw some Git commits about changing, I guess, the behavior for validator autopay. And so, Odie, I'm not sure if you're able to talk a little bit about that and if that will be going into this network today.
Yeah, so that's a good one. There's a bug that we, had fixed. So we're just trying to do a jubilee of all of the stuff that we haven't really rolled into an upgrade. So since January, we'd found a bug in how autopay behaves, and we're rolling that fix. So it's just really, we need to introduce a better counter. Kind of a long story we can go into, but with the way autopay was doing percentages was actually underpaying certain accounts, and we'll need to discuss a make whole on those accounts later, but for now we needed an upgrade to autopay that required a state migration. So
Okay, I was actually referring to it was previously called the Scrooge, I think, proposal or something like that.
Yeah, okay, that one. Yeah, so that's the burn increase. So what we've had is voluntary donations of using autopay to community wallets, and the consensus that emerged in the community, or let's say the pattern that emerged in the community, people donate 50% or more to the autopays. There have been some people that went ahead and donated 0%, and I think community members thought that wasn't cool. And the design of the burn is so that we'll now encode sort of that norm as the burn. So you're going to burn 50% of your validator coins. So you can turn off autopay, and as I imagine everybody else will do, and that burn either burns completely, just disappears into the ether coins, as it happens now with the one coin every epoch, or you choose to reroute it to an index of community wallets. Now, what's important about this design is pretty cool, and you can read about it. There's some good documentations on it. Economists worked on this. There's no whitelist. So there isn't like a whitelist of community wallets. Anybody starts up a community wallet, and the ones that are it biases towards more recent transactions, but you get an index of what wallets are getting the most donations. And so if you want to stake a wallet, you'll be able to have the index influenced, and more of that burn goes into it. Again, it's optional. You can always opt out of the donations. You just burn completely, or actually, rather, you can opt in to doing the community donation. So that's I think the one change that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and have the opportunity to do it now.
All right, thanks. Yeah, that was helpful.
All right, awesome. So, last chance for our panelists and our members in the call if they want to discuss something. Other than that, I think we can close the session a bit earlier today, and let us know if you have any questions so far. All right, awesome. I wish everyone a great day and hope to see you all next week. Thank you, everyone.
See you all on the new network.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Odie. We'll see you guys around.
Thank you, Odi. Thank you, Rico.